The Light on the Path, a story of faith, redemption, and hope. Daniel Morales adjusted the camera on the tripod and looked through the viewfinder. The studio was ready, the lights perfectly positioned, but something inside him didn't feel right. He had spent years filming commercials, documentaries, and short films, but this project was different. It wasn't about selling a product or telling a fictional story. It was something deeper, something that forced him to face questions he had avoided for years. "Ready?" asked Laura, his assistant, interrupting his thoughts. "Yes," Daniel replied, though he wasn't sure he was. The task was simple: create a motivational video about Christian faith. For him, however, it felt almost impossible. How could he speak about something he no longer believed in? The project idea had come unexpectedly. A local church pastor, Reverend Samuel, had contacted him after watching one of his documentaries. "We need someone who knows how to tell stories," he had said. "We want a video that inspires, that shows how faith can transform lives." Daniel had hesitated at first. He wasn't a believer, at least not anymore. But the money was good, and he desperately needed a project to distract him from his own emptiness. So he accepted, though with reservations. That night, while reviewing notes from his first interview, Daniel couldn't shake a feeling of unease. Ana Lopez, a 45-year-old woman, had survived terminal cancer. According to her, her faith in God had sustained her through the most difficult treatments. "It wasn't easy," Ana had told him during the recording, "but in my darkest moments, I felt I wasn't alone. God was with me, giving me strength to keep going." Daniel didn't know what to say. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of curiosity. Maybe, just maybe, there was something beyond what his eyes could see. The next testimony was from Miguel, a man who had spent most of his life in prison. "I was a man full of hatred," Miguel confessed in front of the camera. "But in prison, someone told me about Jesus. First I laughed, but then I started reading the Bible. It was like a light entered my heart. Now I am free, not because I left prison, but because I found forgiveness and peace." Daniel listened carefully, but uncomfortable questions arose within him. How could someone change so drastically? Was it really possible that God had that kind of power? As the project progressed, Daniel encountered more stories that challenged him. Sophia, a young missionary, had given up a life of luxury to serve in needy communities. "God called me," she said with a serene smile. "And although it's not always easy, I know I'm where I'm meant to be." Then there was Carlos, a father who had lost his job during the economic crisis. "I thought everything was lost," Carlos admitted, "but in the middle of despair, I found hope in God. He helped me rebuild my life, step by step." Each testimony was like a blow to Daniel's heart. Their words echoed in his mind, awakening memories he had tried to bury. He remembered his sister, Elena, and how unshakable her faith had been, even in her final days. "God has a plan," she had told him, holding his hand with a weak smile. Daniel hadn't understood it then, and even less after her death. What kind of plan could include so much pain? One night, after an exhausting day of filming, Daniel sat alone in his apartment, surrounded by silence. He turned on the television but couldn't focus. He turned it off and picked up the Bible he had been using as a reference for the project. He opened it randomly, and his eyes landed on a verse. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." The words moved him in a way he couldn't explain. For the first time in years, he knelt and prayed. He wasn't sure what to say, but the tears flowed freely. From that moment on, something changed in Daniel. He began to see the project not just as a job, but as an opportunity to explore his own faith or lack thereof. Each interview became a sincere conversation, and each story brought him closer to a truth he had been avoiding. It wasn't just about God. It was about hope, forgiveness, and redemption. The process wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, anger, and frustration. Daniel wrestled with questions that had no easy answers. Why did God allow suffering? Why had he allowed Elena to die? But as he delved deeper into the stories of others, he began to see a pattern. Faith was not a guarantee against pain, but a tool to overcome it. Finally, the day came to finish the video. Daniel had carefully edited each testimony, blending them with images that conveyed hope and light. When he watched the final product, he felt a peace he hadn't experienced in years. The video wasn't perfect, but it was authentic. It was his story, interwoven with the stories of others. On the day of the presentation, Daniel was nervous. Reverend Samuel and a group of church members gathered to watch the video. When the lights dimmed and the images began to play, Daniel held his breath. He saw the faces of Anna, Miguel, Sofia, and Carlos on the screen, heard their words of faith and hope, and felt the atmosphere in the room shift. When the video ended, there was a reverent silence, followed by applause and tears. After the screening, Reverend Samuel approached Daniel. "Thank you," he said with a sincere smile. "This video will touch many lives." Daniel nodded, feeling a weight he hadn't realized he was carrying lift off his shoulders. "Thank you," he replied. "This project changed mine." In the weeks that followed, the video went viral. Thousands of people shared it, commenting on how it had given them hope in difficult moments. Daniel received messages of gratitude from people he had never met, and while he felt overwhelmed, he also felt grateful. He had found something he had been searching for a long time: a purpose. One afternoon, Daniel visited Elena's grave. He knelt and placed a flower on the headstone. "Thank you, sister," he whispered, "for believing even when I couldn't." And for the first time in years, he felt she was near, not as a painful memory, but as a comforting presence. Daniel's journey wasn't over. He knew there were still unanswered questions and wounds to heal. But now he had something he once lacked: faith. Not blind faith, but faith that had been tested and strengthened through the stories of others. And with that faith, he was ready to move forward, one step at a time.